Welcome back to Where is the Money? So the economy is not looking that great from the current administration. So some people are saying, like, listen, it's the K-shaped economy has already started again.
K-shaped economy is back. We're in a situation where the richest Americans, the top 20%, certainly the top 10% are doing really well. And the bottom 80% has run through their pandemic savings and the revenge spending era and is now really strained. They're strained to pay off credit card and auto loans and student loans, and their spending is barely keeping up with inflation again. And so whether or not this economy goes into a recession basically depends upon spending of people earning, roughly $250,000 or more. And that's not how it used to be. And it's a really risky situation to be so dependent on a small number of people. And basically the stock market's in the same situation. And we talk about the big tech and the big bank stocks, those 10 stocks that are dominating right now and, shooting to the moon on all this AI spending. Meanwhile, all other 490 companies in the S&P 500 are basically treading water, while the same thing is happening in the consumer economy. And it's only likely to get worse as prices go up from the tariffs and companies potentially turn around and lay off more people. The middle class is going to get squeezed, and moderate income people are in for a very, very difficult time ahead.
It's going to take weeks, they say, to start fulfilling all these SNAP benefits and the rest. So we're looking at a moment in which we kind of tear the covers off the bed to see the state of our economy. How would you describe it?
We have two economies today. We have one that is intensely market-driven for those at the top, which is extraordinary. They are spending like there's no tomorrow. Meanwhile, for those at the bottom, they're not sure how they're going to make it through the day. And so that disparity shows up in all sorts of data, in corporate anecdotes, in earnings reports. And it's troubling to me, not solely from an economic perspective, but what it says in terms of sentiment. Because we have a small group of Americans who feel invulnerable. At the same time, we have this sea of mounting despair.
We are in a K-shaped economy. Now, those that are not that familiar with the K-shaped economy, it's a setup where the lower class is getting screwed. We're getting all of the high prices, all of the high costs, barely getting by, struggling. Meanwhile, the upper class, rich folk, doing well, doing great, making more money while we're making less. Any of that sounds familiar? The only way you're thriving in this current economic climate is if you're at the top of the K-shape. If you're 40 plus, already bought a house, own house, got equity in the home, maybe got a couple properties, you can weather the storm a little bit. Maybe not great, but it ain't struggling. Maybe you own stock. You got a retirement IRA. You have a high yield savings. You got in early on some stock investments and it's just compounding that interest. So you're great, because Main Street and Wall Street is not in the same world. They operate in two different universes. Main Street is struggling. The everyday person is struggling to get by with these prices. Meanwhile, Wall Street is record highs. They playing with the stock numbers, with the AI bubble, shooting it up, laying off people, calling it AI, stock portfolio going through the roof. Meanwhile, the everyday person that was middle class, is the operative word, was middle class. Maybe they worked at UPS making $100,000. Now they get furloughed. Maybe they was a tech worker working at Google making $100,000 a year. Now they're laid off on unemployment.
Friday Thoughts with Allie. I've been thinking a lot about the K-shaped economy, and it's basically this idea that those higher income consumers, they are propping up the economy while the lower income consumers are really struggling. That is not all that surprising, right? But there are a lot of factors that go into that. So on the one hand, you look at the stock market, record highs. Of course, we have a bit of a pullback over the past 2 days, but still hovering at those highs. So who's invested in the stock market? Typically those higher income consumers. At the same time, who has homes? Who has equity? those higher income consumers. Right now, you have 40-year-olds. That's the median age of folks that are able to afford a home. So if you earn a lot of money, you have equity in your home, you have equity in the stock market, you're feeling okay. If you don't have either of those things, you are struggling under the weight of multiple different factors. We still have inflation that's significantly above the Fed's 2% target, hovering at around 3%. That's part of the reason why we saw this sell-off over the past 2 days, because a lot of federal officials, they think maybe we shouldn't be cutting rates in December due to sticky inflation. Then you have the jobs picture. Low hire, low fire. We are starting to see layoffs start to creep up a little bit. It's really difficult to find a job, and that's further pressuring consumers. So the overall concern with this K-shaped economy is that if you have this recession in the lower cohort of consumers, that is going to start to creep up the totem pole, and eventually you could have those higher income earners start to pull back. That will weigh on GDP growth and really have this ripple effect throughout the entire economy. So there's a lot of different forces at play, from the stock market to inflation to the jobs picture, and it's just really fascinating stuff. And I'm curious to see how this all plays out, especially as we head into the peak holiday shopping season. So let me know your thoughts on the K-shaped economy, how you're feeling about the current status of things, because it's just always really interesting to me to see stocks at record highs, yet when you talk to everyday folks out there, they're struggling and they're not feeling that euphoria. So more to come on that.
You talk a lot left and right as being the biggest divisions in America. It's not. Our biggest division is up and down, and no more so than measured in terms of the confidence people feel.
How about that? It's not left and right, it's up and down. And you have an administration that's largely populated with people who are up.
Yes.
Does that matter?
Yes, it does.
Used the word despair a couple of times as the president describes this as the greatest economy in history. And we don't have a lot of data to put to this right now because the government is closed. And there are questions about what we're going to learn when the government reopens, BLS starts cranking out data again. So let's stick with the anecdotal, because this new poll from Bloomberg Harris is striking, to think that this many people are worried about losing their jobs.
Maybe they were one of the thousands laid off from Amazon. Maybe they was part of the school district and the administration and the teachers getting laid off. Maybe they work for Salesforce, making $70,000 a year as a sales manager, laid off. Maybe they was a federal worker, union benefits, making $100,000 a year. Now they're laid off. All of these different individuals in all of these different industries were making good money comfortably in the middle class. All of these families that depend on these people, all of those taxes that were paid from this, all of the services that these people purchased is now zero. Now, all of those people are out of work. That directly impacts the economy and directly impact these people's lives in making it only rich and poor, no middle class.
I got a visual here. I'm going to show you exactly what a K-shaped economy is, because you might have been hearing about it a lot on social media lately. A K-shaped economy. So this is a K. This is the poor people. This is the rich people. That's what a K-shaped economy is. If you're poor, your shit is going down. If you're rich, your shit is going up. This is a visual representation of the rich getting richer. That is the K-shaped economy. That's why poor people are using stuff like buy now, pay later to pay for their groceries, or for DoorDash. That's why poor people are going to the grocery store and going, oh shit, I don't think I can afford whatever it is that they're trying to buy, ground beef, strawberries, whatever. Whereas if a rich person went to the grocery store and they picked up a pound of ground beef, you know what they would say? They would go, God damn, $11.99 for 1 pound of ground beef? Oh well, and they'd put it in their cart. Whereas someone else on the downside of that K-side economy would pick up a pound of ground beef and go, Jesus Christ, $11.99, guess we're not eating. See, because wealthy people tend to have more investments, more cash, higher paying jobs, they can just look at stuff getting more expensive and go, oh well, ultimately a K-shaped economy isn't good for anyone, because the growth of our economy is only dependent on a very small segment of our population. So if the people who are in poverty are living close to the poverty line or don't have high income jobs and they aren't seeing their wages increase and they can't invest and they can't now afford to buy groceries without doing a buy now, pay later kind of thing, if they cut back even further and the wealthy people stop shopping, you could have economic collapse.
It used to be a concept, rich, poor, no middle class. We are seeing that play out real time in 2025, and it's gonna get worse in 26. So what do you make of this? Do you feel like the economy is getting worse, not better? Do you feel like the administration is helping at all? What do you make of this? You tell me. Put your comments below. Let's talk about it. This is Where is the Money? Talk to you soon.